Just recently, we saw a thrilling Dutch Grand Prix at the prestigious Zandvoort circuit. The race was filled with many highs and lows, but in the end, we saw Red Bull snatch the victory out of Mercedes' hands. More importantly, we saw how Lewis Hamilton came so close to not only being on the podium, but also getting a race win. So sit back as we tell you all that went down. First off, we look at how the race weekend was for Hamilton. The Mercedes had a solid start for their race weekend, as we saw that in the practice sessions on Friday, both of their drivers showed some serious speed on the track. George Russell led a comfortable first and second position shared with Hamilton in FP1. In the second practice session, it got a little shaky for Hamilton as he slipped to P3, falling behind Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz Jr. of Ferrari. Their car was showing signs of true pace as he did qualify fourth for the actual race on Sunday. During the race, we saw some tough battles for the top slots. Initially, Max and Leclerc were fighting it out for the first position, but midway through the race, we saw Hamilton take the lead as Verstappen was pitted by Red Bull. It seemed as if Mercedes' strategy of a one-stopper might just get Lewis his first and long-awaited win this season, but a virtual safety car due to Sonata gave him 2021 Abu Dhabi GP flashbacks. The virtual safety car allowed drivers to pit for fresher tires with a significant time advantage, and this proved to be detrimental to the British driver's race. This move resulted in Hamilton not only losing the lead of the race, but also a spot at the podium, and as a result, shortly after the race, we saw the driver publicly losing his cool at the team for the first time in a long time. Moving on, was it the team's fault or hard luck? While there's no denying that if there were no safety car incidents for Sonata and Bottas, Hamilton had a solid chance of not only getting a podium place, but also winning the race. But even with the safety car incidents, there were a few strategic mistakes on the team's part. When Tsunoda had his car fail, Max saw an opportunity and pitted for fresher tires. This allowed him to regain the lead of the race. But all was not over for Lewis, as we saw shortly after the Bottas car failure allowed Hamilton to regain his lost lead. But the real snub for the British driver was when Russell came back into the pits asking for soft tires, and that left Hamilton completely exposed, and in no time, he was overtaken by Verstappen. Adding insult to injury, we saw the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc passing him by, and that snatched any hope he had of being on the podium. This hurt him more because at one point, it looked as if he was going to win the race. As if this wasn't enough, his teammate George Russell, who was already outshining him in his debut season at Mercedes, overtook him to take second place on the podium. This set off some sparks inside the Mercedes camp, as just after the race, Lewis had to go with the team over the radio, alleging that the team did him extremely wrong. Next up, Hamilton's fiery comments and Mercedes' response. Hamilton is not the type of driver we see losing his cool oftentimes. The driver has a persona of being humble and calm, even in the tensest moments. This surely wasn't the case on Sunday, as post-race, he had a few things to get off his chest immediately. Over the radio, everyone watching the race heard him take a dig at his strategists and race engineer. Most notably, lines were perhaps, "That was the biggest f***up." Hamilton raged over the radio, and "I can't believe how much you guys f***ed me." This showed that the driver had no doubt in his mind that it was solely due to the team allowing Russell to pit, that he lost his shot at the podium. This anger was justified, because if Russell had not pitted, Mercedes would have not won but 2 cars on the podium, something that would give them much needed points to keep Ferrari at bay for second place in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff did his bit to calm Hamilton down, as he heard him tell the driver that his anger was justified and that the team shall look into what went wrong in their strategy. Now, Ricciardo's longing sorrows and what lies ahead. Another driver that is making the rounds in Formula 1 news this season is the Australian Daniel Ricciardo. Unfortunately for him, things have been going in a downward spiral for him since this season started. While initially when the season started, his only worry was not performing up to par with his teammate Lando Norris. The driver finds himself in an even worse position currently. Earlier in the season, when there were rumors circulating of Ricciardo's exit from McLaren, the team and the driver were quick to respond. They stated that the driver will be driving for the team in 2023. These clarifications were soon no longer accurate, as out of nowhere, we got the news of McLaren signing another young fellow Australian driver, Oscar Piastri, for his rookie season in Formula 1. Later on, when the details of this contract were released, it turned out that the team knew about this before Ricciardo did. and they kept it from him until the very end. This leaves the beloved Honey Badger with an uncertain future ahead of him. Add that up with him only scoring points 4 times this season, and he must have an insane amount of pressure on him. For the remainder of this season, his only constant worry would be to up his racing game and accumulate as many points as possible to end terms with McLaren on a high note. In other news, let's look at Mercedes' conspiracy. While most of the blame sits with the team after an underwhelming result on Sunday, Mercedes and fans have stirred up some conspiracy rumors targeted toward their rival, Red Bull. Mercedes have raised their suspicion that Yuki Tsunoda's car failure was rather a very well-executed strategy to bring in a safety car and allow Max to regain the lead. While this rumor is not backed with any concrete evidence currently, this didn't stop the fans from lashing out their anger on social media. Red Bull has officially come out and told us that the abuse being hurled toward their staff for this alleged cheating is not in the spirit of the game. Moreover, they also reiterated that the team would never indulge in any such illicit race fixing as it's not equal to Red Bull's standards. Next up is Daniel Ricciardo's future in the sport. Shortly after the Dutch Grand Prix, Ricciardo found himself in the spotlight again as he was filmed having what seemed to be a conversation related to his future with Sergio Perez. In the casual off-track conversation, the Australian driver seemed to be saying that he is taking the next year off and returning to F1 in 2024. This would make sense if the driver fails to get a team to sign him for the next season, as a driver like Ricciardo won't be keen on being a reserve driver for McLaren next season. Surely this would be highly upsetting for his fans, as the beginning of this season, they never would have thought that their favorite driver won't be racing next year. The driver currently sits at 13th place in the WDC with 19 points to his name. These aren't great numbers, and don't do justice to a driver of Ricciardo's stature. Lastly, we look at the Dutch GP results and the race ahead. Max Verstappen's sheer brilliance got him first place on Sunday. The Dutch driver pleased his Orange Army in the stands with his phenomenal drive. Following his lead were George Russell and Charles Leclerc, respectively. As the season has progressed, we saw all the top 3 teams are fairly close to each other and giving their rivals a tough time. Next week, we have the much-awaited Monza Grand Prix. This race is crucial for Ferrari, as it's their home race in Italy, and they would hate to let their fans down on Sunday, especially after the team has been called out so many times this year for their strategic blunders costing them heavily. Ferrari would be hoping to wipe the stain on their name with a perfectly executed strategy in the next race, allowing them to get a finish on the podium for both Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. But on the other hand, Red Bull, with their insane straight-line speed and highly skilled drivers, will not make it easy for Ferrari to walk over them. Not to mention, Russell and Hamilton would be just as willing to get that spot on the podium. Needless to say, it's already looking like a great race week ahead of us this Sunday. That's a wrap for this video. What were the best bits of the Dutch GP for you? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.